What's up, guys, and welcome to BitCast episode 97 for the week of March 20th, 2022. I'm your host, Jake Martin. On the show this week, we have Zach Flowers back for our 6th annual Best Picture nominee prediction podcast.
Yeah. I'm a little bummed we couldn't fit in like 3 more episodes before so we could hit 100 with this.
Dude.
This was like one of like the OG ideas with the podcast was to do
it really was
the award predictions, because we would do this, we say that, I feel like we say this every single time we do this. It's like we used to do this back in like 2013 and 14. We'd just sit around and talk about movies. But
yeah, back in the day, things were different. We what I could do is I could just edit that part out and say 100 and then edit it back in and do 3 more podcasts really quickly and see if we can make it the 100th episode.
Like 3-minute podcast, just like quick hitters.
Yeah. And then somehow make it there at the end. Yeah. Well, if you have been listening to the show for a while, you'll know that Zach and I have been doing this, like I said, for 6 years, and we are reviewing all the Best Picture nominations for the 94th Academy Awards, or Oscars, whatever you prefer to call them. So today we're going through the 10 titles, the 10 nominations, and we're just going to briefly talk about what we thought. We're going to sort of predict which one we think will win, and then also get into a little bit of like which one is our personal favorite. All the fun things you've come to expect these past couple of years. But question for listeners, if you are keeping up with the Oscars and Best Picture nominations specifically, if you've seen them, which ones were your favorite and which one do you think will win? We'd love to know. I'm going to put a poll on this podcast and Spotify, so I don't think all the pictures can make it in because I think we have 7 options, but I will pick the ones that I feel like have the best options so you can vote on those.
We got some easy ones to cut, so it's not.
Yeah, we got some ones that I'm pretty sure are not going to make it, but you never know. You never know. Before we jump into the topic, though, Zach, I got to ask you, what are you sipping on over there? What is that?
Oh, just a local 5 Wits Fiero. It's a Mexican style lager from Chattanooga. So that's good.
Chattanooga.
Yeah, I'm like Mexican beer from Chattanooga.
Yeah, I guess.
It's tasty, so I'm not going to complain.
I feel like the craft beer scene was really hot. Early 2010s into like 2015, and it kind of, maybe it hasn't slowed down, I don't know, but I just feel like I got to a point where I was like, I don't know if I know about beer anymore, or if I can really tell the difference between all these different breweries at this point. So
this was it was some dinner party, something or another we did over here with the neighbors, and somebody brought it. So it's like
it's a cool can.
I know. I was like, it's my last kind of colorfully designed.
Look at this. Well, I'm very lame, and I'm sipping on a nice, delicious glass of water.
Hey, I mean, to be fair, this is probably my first beer I've had in maybe a month and a half. So,
Oh, yeah.
It's
you and me both. We're living that dad life.
There's
no time.
There's no time. I'm amazed I made it through 8 of these 10 films. Honestly, with my kid and all of his late night endeavors of bedtime's not till 9:30, and I'm like, child, who are you?
It really is a marathon, and like you have to fit it in when you can, and luckily in our scenario, Henry goes down about 7:30, maybe 8 at the latest, so we have at least from like 8 till 10 o'clock, and we can get most of these films in,
and he's still taking some naps in the day and stuff like that. Yeah. See, Nico's at the point where it just kind of depends on the day. Like if he's at Leah's mom's house, he will take a nap because she'll basically make him take a nap.
Yeah.
But if he's here, it is pulling teeth to try to get a nap, and so half the time he's just like, no, I'll do early bedtime, and you're like, no, you won't, but okay. So.
I don't believe you. Kids, man, they're the best. They're the best.
They're great.
It really is, though. It's been a lot of fun, but not as fun. Actually, that's not true.
That's not true.
Not true. But almost as fun. Almost as fun as the topic of the show today. So let's jump into this. We're going to try and spend about 5 minutes on each of these movies, and we're going from alphabetical order. So we're starting at the top with Belfast. And this was directed by Kenneth Branagh. Known for such titular roles as Henry V, Hamlet, Dunkirk, Much Ado About Nothing, and pretty much anything Shakespearean. Like, this dude has either acted in and or directed.
And Gilderoy Lockhart from Harry Potter.
Yes, I saw that. I saw that credit, and I was like, "Dang, that's pretty awesome." I didn't realize this until I was looking up his roles and stuff he's done. He's the man. And this is starring Catriona Balfe, Judi Dench, Jamie Dornan, and I don't know how to pronounce that last one. Kieran Hines.
I believe it's Kieran. That sounds like it. Yeah.
So just a quick little descriptor here. Belfast is a movie straight from Branagh's own experience.
Syrian?
I don't know. Syrian?
I don't remember.
We're not great with names, guys. That's the first thing you should know. A 9-year-old boy must chart a path towards adulthood through a world that has suddenly turned upside down. His stable and loving community and everything he thought he understood about life is changed forever. And everything, but joy, laughter, and music and the formative magic of the movies remain. And so, that's a pretty good synopsis. This is sitting at an 87% on Rotten Tomatoes for critics and 92% for audience. So pretty high up there. Most of these are actually relatively high. There's a few low scores on here. But let's start with you, Zach. What were your overall thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We're starting with this one just alphabetically, and this is like my favorite one that I watched. It's just I don't know, like for whatever reason, it just like hit different. There was so much kind of like emotion in this, the way it was shot, just using all the black and white, and then like every once in a while you'd have the he's at a movie or he's at a play, and it's like you're seeing it all in color.
Very subtle, subtle use of color.
Little subtle color, but when you're thinking about it, okay, it's a kid growing up in a neighborhood where during the Troubles, which was the Belfast time frame when it was like Catholic versus Protestant, but very violent and
insane.
All this stuff. So you're getting kind of all that thing. I mean, you can definitely tell that Branagh spent like a ton of effort making sure that this thing was like exactly how he wanted you emotionally to feel. And like I was like hook, line, and sinker every single bit of it. Like the kid is like amazing. I loved watching that. There was a lot of mannerisms, stuff like that were kind of reminded me of like, oh, this is what Nico's going to be like when he's like, 4 or 5 years more than what he is right now. And then just like the relationship of like the grandfather reminded me of my grandpa. So, I mean, I was kind of, suckered into it at some point, but at the same time, I don't know. It's just like it's very, very heavy. Like the topic is very heavy. You're talking about like religious conflict, but like super, violent
like gang wars. Yeah,
essentially. But so you have all this thing, but it never feels heavy except for the opening scene. The first time when they kind of like come in and it's really like, oh, you're seeing the gangs kind of roll down the streets and set cars on fires and all this. Like that's
so crazy.
It's the only time that you're really feeling like this is intense. Even like the more intense sequence, which is when his dad is squaring off with the guy who has his the kid at basically hostage, and it's like done in like this Western style John Wayne.
Yes.
But that's how the kid is viewing it. So like just the way that it told the story through the eyes of the kid, I was like, this is absolutely brilliant. Probably one of my favorite movies I saw all year. If I had a vote, this would be my vote. We'll get into kind of how we ranked things later, but this would be my vote. I love the movie. It was, it was just brilliant. I cannot say enough nice things about this. So
I'm kind of in the same boat as you. This was up there with like one of my favorites of this year's nominations. To the point about the color, I think I wrote down. I was like, what is up with the symbolism? And your comment makes perfect sense. Like this was like Branagh's escape as a kid, like going to the theater and like being able to see these things. And so that use of color actually was genius. Did you catch the reflection of the movie in in his mom's glasses or whatever, or the grandma's glasses? Like that was clever.
Yeah.
And then like the very end, it has those notes about like to all those who left and all those who stayed behind, like that actually kind of hit me hard at the end. I was like, oh, that's what this was about really. Like it's really hard leaving this entire town that you've had your history and your whole lives. You know, like the hardest thing was like the dynamic between the dad and the mom was interesting to me. Like the dad was always out and away and kind of, you know, working outside of town and coming back. They never really explained exactly what was going on with him as much. And I think that was intentional because that's probably how it felt for him growing up as well. Yeah. Like, you know, my dad was not there that often, so I didn't really know what was going on with him. But I just loved that idea of like, man, yeah, when you really think about people that have lived somewhere that long and like how hard it is to leave, you know, like when her parents or his parents were like understanding of them having to leave, you know, I was like, oh, that's so sad. Like, it's like, hey, you have to go. We know this, but we're going to stay here because we don't know anything else. Like, this is our town. We know everyone here. We're not going anywhere. Yeah. And I was like, dang.
Yeah, it's powerful. That the whole line of like the, you know, go now, don't look back. And
when it like cuts right to her face,
and it's just like, same Judi Dench right here.
Yeah, that actually just gave me chills just talking about that just now. That was great.
Definitely some, you know, some welling in the tear ducts that were. I was like, all right, okay.
And they're just sitting in the bus, and like the last thing you see of them is really just them leaving the bus, and that was it. I was like, dang.
Yeah.
Dang. So yeah, same as you. I think this has the potential to win. I loved it. And it definitely got a lot of press. This one was one that was getting like, I was feeling like a lot more like advertising and people actually mentioning it outside of just some of these other films, at least compared to these other films.
Sure.
It was getting mentioned more. So
yeah, it was starting to feel like it had, like, I think before the award show season, this definitely felt like one that was in serious contention, and it hasn't really panned itself out that way as far as the awards go. But you know, I would be over the moon with this one. I think it has a shot, probably more now of an outside chance to do so, but we'll see.
We'll figure it out. But yeah, so Belfast, great film.
Yes.
Moving on to the next one on our list with a C, we have CODA, and I believe it's in all caps.
Yes, it is. Stands for Children of Deaf Adults.
Again, Zach, see, this is why you're the best person for the job.
I'm here. Yeah.
You're the best person to have on the podcast. So this was directed by Sion Heder. Again, terrible with names.
That's not what we're here for.
But I looked up all of these directors, and this seems like one of the first ones that this person has done. You can correct me on that one or not. I don't know.
I'm unaware of any other previous work, but yeah.
Starring Emilia Jones, Troy Kotzer, Marlee Matlin, and Daniel Durant. All like pretty much actors you may have seen in like just smaller roles, but like a lot of these were pretty new to the film. And like, I mean, obviously starring the main character was a deaf individual, which is really cool. This is a synopsis really quick. 17-year-old Ruby, Emilia Jones, is a sole hearing member of a deaf family, a CODA, child of deaf adults. There you go. Her life revolves around acting as an interpreter for her parents and working on the family's struggling fishing boat every day before school with her father and an older brother. But when Ruby joins her high school's choir club, she discovers a gift for singing and soon finds herself drawn to her duet partner, Miles. Encouraged by her enthusiastic, tough-love choir master to apply to a prestigious music school, Ruby finds herself torn between the obligation she feels to her family and the pursuit of her own dreams. 95 critic, 93 audience, so very high.
Yeah.
So you just watched this one. I'm going to let you take this over because I commented on this one last time that this was a long time ago when I saw this. So I remember thinking it was really sweet, and I loved a lot of the scenes. There were some really powerful scenes that still stick with me in this film. And so I'm curious to see kind of as a fresh take what you kind of have left in your brain right now, or what's kind of sitting with you after you've watched it.
So for reference, we were recording this on a Wednesday. Well, I watched this on Monday, so it's
hot.
Just watched this. Is really one film that I've seen more recently, but it was one of those. I don't know. I kind of went into this like not expecting it to like laugh almost as much as I did, but just like the banter between all the family members, And even though, you know, half of it you're reading subtitles or you're just getting weird noises and it's because they're making up different, like, you know, insults at each other through signing. And it just, there's so much stuff where I was just like laughing at almost how blunt they could be because nobody understood kind of what they were saying. So I was like, that actually is pretty awesome in many regards. But the dynamics between all of that was, I don't know, it was so good and it was refreshing. And it was one of those films, like, yes, it was, you know, very serious subject, but it was like, you kind of still ended the movie and you're like, I feel good and I feel happy and I feel like, you know, this, everything kind of worked out. And you know, there are some other films where I did not feel that way.
Almost all these films, you don't feel
most of them you're like, oh, that's just gut wrenching. But like there were there's a couple scenes that really stand out there for me when she is performing. And I mean, she is an incredible singer. Like even just listening, she did that, the song during the credits. And I remember just like closing my eyes and just like laying in bed when he is asleep and it's like midnight. And I'm just listening to the song and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good.
That's such a good song.
And she's like, she's just incredibly talented. But they start the song that they've kind of been rehearsing all throughout the movie. And then it kind of zooms in on the parents and the brother who are all deaf. And the audio just like goes out. And it's just like, you see them kind of just like looking around and trying to gauge other people's reaction to figure out, okay, when do we clap? Then they're looking, they're seeing this person over here, this person's crying, and then this person is you know, standing up and cheering. And then like, and so it's like that first time where they actually kind of like get that whole dynamic of like, oh, she's actually good and she's making an impact and a difference. And then like the only thing that tops that part is like the next scene and they get home and her dad is like, I want you to sing the song again. And like just like holds his hands on the vocal cords so you can hear the vibration to hear. And I was just like, I'm
so
in a
sweet
glass case of emotion. And then after that you get where she's at her audition and like in the middle of the song starts like signing to her family in the balcony that had snuck in. And I was just like, this is so beautiful. I love it is so sweet. There's like so many moments like that are just like really sweet. And then you like you said, you have these moments that are just tucked in that are really funny. Like when her parents are like having sex like in the other room and they're like super loud but they have no idea, you know, and she's like having her friend over and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed, you know. There's so much of that stuff that is just great. And gosh,
would you one thing I wanted to say too is I don't know about you, but like because you know we have a baby that's usually asleep, a lot of times we watch all of our movies now in subtitles anyways, so watching this film felt right at home. I was like, I love subtitles. I was like, I feel like I miss so much dialogue now when subtitles aren't on. I know like I can still appreciate films without them, but there's like a lot of like stuff that is tucked in there you wouldn't catch sometimes.
And I've started doing that with some like obviously if I have like, you know, headphones in or something like that, I don't have them on because it almost gets more distracting. But I watched a lot of like TV shows in the morning and stuff like that when Nico's still asleep and I'm trying to like sneak in a couple episodes here and like and I'll kick those on because I'm like, I don't need it out, you know, 17 on the TV. I can put that thing at 5, still hear it, but have the subtitles going. So it didn't feel. And honestly, like you know, some my dad was talking about it. This was one of the films that like they hadn't watched yet because they were like, there's just so much signing and having to read all the subtitles like that. And it didn't even really feel, because there is still so much other noise and stuff like going on, and they're very good at kind of conveying emotion with their acting. And you still have Ruby who is signing but also still talking at the same time too, because you know, brother's trying to read lips or, you know, whatever it is. Like it really didn't feel like I'm sitting through 2 hours of a movie where I'm having to like read a bunch of subtitles but also watching like it didn't feel like that by any means. So it I don't, it was really I just felt like it was really well done. Also, Marlee Matlin, I'm a huge West Wing fan, so seeing Joey Lucas back. Also, she has an Academy Award for Best Actress, I believe, for Children of Another God, I believe. But it was also it was like one of the first. I think she was one of the first deaf actresses to ever be like nominated and end up winning that time too, I believe.
That's awesome.
But so yeah, it was fun to kind of see all that. And I have a very, very, very good, we don't usually talk about other kind of acting awards, but Troy Kotsur, the dad, I think is probably a lock for supporting actor.
He did an amazing job. Yeah. Fantastic. All the scenes that he was in were just so either funny or like so sweet, like so touching. So this is one that you think will probably win, and we'll talk about it later, but this is on your list for potential win. This
is I think realistically we're probably looking at a 2 or 3 horse race. This probably like a month ago would have been like dark horse candidate that might do it, and now it's just picked up a couple wins with like got the SAG award for best like ensemble cast, which is like the equivalent of like their best picture because they don't do pictures with SAG. But so they picked up that one, and then it just won the Producers Guild Award for best picture. So just picking up those last 2 and beating out some of the other ones, like all of a sudden it seems like enough momentum has kind of changed, and
people were remembering CODA. They're like, oh yeah, don't forget about CODA, because this is a movie that's really good.
And we talked about this kind of pre-show that this movie released in January of 2021, like at the Sundance Film Festival,
over a year ago.
And then like Apple picked it up in August for Apple Plus. So even then it's still been out for 7 to 8 months now. Yep. And so it's not one that is fresher on people's minds. So I think once it started kind of, I don't know if it was just all of a sudden when like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Oh, let's rewatch that. Oh yeah, this is actually good. And I think that just kind of started to maybe shift some of the narrative, which I'm a little happy about, but we'll get there. So anyways, yes, I would be totally fine with this one winning. Obviously Belfast, I still would love Belfast to win, but I would be just fine with this one.
I don't think this will win, but I'm thinking more out of just, I wasn't aware of all the other awards stuff they'd win. So for me, like mine was like, this is one that I feel like just people like me have probably had watched and enjoyed, but like, when you're so far removed from something, you kind of, I mean, obviously for the Oscars, I would hope that the judges are not like, oh, I forgot about that one, I'm just not going to watch it again.
Well, and it's also interesting because like this, I think they said, and I was reading a kind of some research stuff, and it only has like 3 nominations. And so they basically said if this does end up actually winning Best Picture, like you'd have to go back to the first decade. So like, what are we talking, 1930s, to find another film comparable with the amount of awards that it was nominated for to also pick up Best Picture. Like it just, it's a lot of things kind of going against it, but it I don't know. It just seems like momentum is shifting. So
it could happen.
I don't know.
All right. Well, moving on to the next one, we have Don't Look Up. And this is this is directed by Adam McKay, who is known for a lot of excellent films that you may have heard of. The Big Short, Vice, Step Brothers, Talladega Nights, and a whole bunch of other Will Ferrell comedies. And it was starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Meryl Streep, Rob Morgan, and a whole bunch of other excellent cast members. And so this is a long description, so I'm going to try and skim through this. But Kate DiBiase, an astronomy and grad student, and her professor, Dr. Randall Mindy, is Leo DiCaprio, make an astounding discovery of a comet orbiting within the solar system. The problem, it's on a direct collision course with Earth. The other problem, no one really seems to care. And so that really is kind of the whole story.
Yeah. It's trying to get everybody to pay attention and care about it.
Yes. It's them sprinting around trying to get in with all of the big dogs and convince them and like, hey, this is really bad. There is a chance that we could all die.
Yeah.
And so this has a 55% critic reception and a 78% audience reception. So the lowest one on the list.
If you want to know the reason why this isn't going to win, that right there, that 50 whatever percent. Yeah, that's gonna be a reason why. But
critics do not like this one. And it's a comedy. It's a dark comedy. It's kind of a political commentary as well. It's one that's probably going to be a bit. I don't know. I was reading a little bit about Adam McKay because I think when this movie came out, he was just talking about, he's taken a change in how he's in movies that he's directed recently. Like, he's done all comedies, and this is still a comedy very much so, but like, he's trying to say more with the films that he's creating, especially like with The Big Short and Vice. Those are two more heavy movies. But I do remember like this saying, you can maybe back me up on this, but like a lot of times like comedy actors and people that are like more familiar with comedy like do drama really well, because they're like this. It's like the same kind of sociological like connection or something like that. Like there's like a connection there. So anyways, all that to say, the big Don't Look Up is I think it was a really fun movie. I enjoyed a lot of elements of this. I wasn't as like sold on Jennifer Lawrence's performance in this. I think she did a good job. Her interactions with Jonah Hill cracked me up so much. Like Jonah Hill just being the younger son of like the president was just so funny, and he was just such a little shit, like just the entire time, just being so dismissive to them. I think it is a really good commentary and probably a good reflection on how our nation would react and how the world would react probably to a lot of this stuff. Like if something were too catastrophic, like this catastrophic were to happen, I think honestly there would be a lot of similar reactions. Obviously, the big tech giant that is in this, I forget the name of the company right now, is it's a conglomeration of a lot of companies we have in America, but the biggest one was obviously Apple. And then
I thought it was almost a spoof on Elon Musk with the whole space.
Well, yes,
exploration, stuff like that. That's what I kind of
Elon. But the guy's whole aesthetic is like very Steve Jobs.
Yeah, for sure.
Very Steve Jobs. So just Silicon Valley, just being obsessed with, making money and being able to do more with our stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like, so obviously there's the great kind of parallel between an asteroid coming towards Earth, also global warming. And it's like, I think a lot of it is kind of that narrative of like, okay, the science basically tells us that like, if we don't act on certain aspects, we're completely doomed. Or at least we're going to have our lives drastically altered in the near future. Yep. And a lot of the times I think it gets frustrating because like the ones that could actually do something about it will use it as like a political football to like, hey, we're going to use these buzzwords to make sure that people know that we're on board with this particular thing and, get some extra votes and stuff like that.
Yep.
Or we're going to use it as the complete opposite and, completely, rail against it to do that as well. So like it definitely plays heavy on the commentary into, okay, asteroid coming to Earth versus global warming. The politicians who are just trying to use this as a way to either get reelected or to, rail against somebody else. And then the media cycle, that kind of like 24-hour news cycle of like, well, as long as it's relevant, we'll talk about it, but we have to find some other aspect that makes it exciting that we're going to talk about it. Elsewise, if you're just trying to give us straight numbers, we're just going to be like, you're boring. So there's a ton of kind of parallels that I think like played really well for this movie. Like I enjoyed watching the movie. Definitely had some good laughs, and then I was like, oh, I'm laughing at this, and this is also our world. So
this is a little bit too real.
Okay, cool. But
like holistically, it was kind of a story that was a little bit not. It never like fully landed for me. Like I got I enjoyed it, same as you. I enjoyed it. I think the story it was telling was good, and like there was a lot of fun, ironic moments.
Yeah.
I didn't love how Leo's character like broke away from like being a good husband.
That felt a little kind of like
that kind of sucked.
Yeah,
okay. But I do like that they also didn't go with what you would want or expect from this film. So Adam McKay made a lot of changes or like a lot of decisions to make this a surprising film. So I was like, okay, they're gonna like maybe dodge a disaster, but realize how terrible they all are, or something. And then no, actually, the Earth just gets blown up.
Yeah.
And then it has that great ending scene with all the people that paid to escape and find life on a different planet. You know, they get off and immediately are just like, they're all just butt naked and they're just getting destroyed by these giant alien birds.
Wonderful. It was a satisfying thing where you're like, yeah, that's what you deserve. That's how that should have ended.
That's how the whole movie should end. Yeah.
I did put an interesting note on my comments, like best picture movie winners and comedies are like very, very rare.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only been two. So The Artist is the most recent one in 2011, but that also had so many different ties to Hollywood and kind of the transition from silent film into, you know, talking films. Like that one kind of made sense because we've kind of talked in the past that like sometimes Hollywood likes to toot their own horn during the Academy Awards.
But they've gotten in trouble for that, so I feel
they
like
have
they've hopefully learned their lesson.
And that's not to kind of bash The Artist. I actually really, really enjoyed The Artist as a film. I thought it was very well done. Anyways, the other was Annie Hall in 1977. So like comedy movies typically just don't win. So I find it hard on a film that critics were 50-50 on and audience was like 75%ish on. That somehow is going to be the third comedy.
Ain't gonna
winner.
happen.
I don't see
ain't
it.
gonna happen.
I don't see it. So
you heard it here, folks. Ain't gonna happen.
Ain't gonna happen.
Ain't gonna happen. But
nope.
still a pretty solid film.
Yeah, I mean, I was entertained by it.
Yeah.
But
you know, I should have put which studio produced these as well. I know that was Netflix. CODA, like I said, Apple picked it up, but I don't know.
Yeah, it was a indie film before they picked it up. So I don't remember.
Sorry, folks, I failed you on that one. But if you want to find that, you can find it later. You're good. All right, so up next we have Drive My Car, and this is one that I have seen. Zach, you have not seen.
It's on my list this week.
I will do my best to try and talk about this without ruining your viewing experience. So, directed by Ryusuke Hamaguchi, starring Hidetoshi Nishijima, Toko Miura, Reika Kirishima, and Yurim Park. I did as good as I could. I'm so sorry, again, if I butchered all those names. But 2 years after his wife's unexpected death, Yusuke Kafuku, a renowned stage actor and director, receives an offer to direct a production of Uncle Vanya at a theater festival in Hiroshima. There he meets Misaki Watari, a taciturn young woman assigned by the festival to chauffeur him in his beloved red Saab 900. As the production's premiere approaches, tensions mount amongst the cast and crew, not least between Yusuke and Koji Takatsuki, a handsome TV star who shares an unwelcome connection to Yusuke's late wife. Forced to confront painful truths raised from his past, Yusuke begins, with the help of his driver, to face the haunting mysteries of his wife left behind. So yeah, right. The write-up sounds very interesting. Right now, it sits at 97 with critics and 79 with the audience, which is actually like kind of what I would expect. So I'll start off by saying it is a very artistic and interesting movie. Beautiful movie. There's so many really, really like nice, just cinematography, just perfect shots that were set up in this film. It's told in an artistic way because, as you heard in the description, it's mirroring this renowned theater director as he's trying to direct a stage play, essentially. And so what he's sort of almost every single line that is being rehearsed or that is on screen that you can hear is like, it's a direct parallel to what's happening in his life. It's really well done.
Okay.
And like, if you pay attention, you're like, oh wow, that's like how he is probably feeling at this exact moment. So those are really cool artful decisions that the director made. And then it's very deep. Like I said, like it's artistic. There's a lot of poetry and like storytelling and things that happen. And it's long, so it's told in two parts. Like the first part
3 hours.
The first part is kind of like they kind of cut past it, but the 2 years after his wife's unexpected death, you see like a lot of the before with his wife. And then there's like a second title screen, and then it goes into like the next story, sort of. But the two are connected, kind of like again like a play. You know, there's like
Act one and Act two, sure.
Yeah. And it's just the more that I've let it sit, the more that I've appreciated it. When I first watched it, like Hannah and I did not like it. We're like, we got through the first half. We're like, I don't know if I like where this is going. Like, I'm just not really into this. And then it keeps going, and it unravels, like it just reveals itself more and more as to what it's trying to do. And at the very end, I was like, that was actually a good film. I appreciated it. It was very artistic, but holistically, like, you know, like I think from a critic standpoint, I think people are going to love this. I think from an audience standpoint, it's a little slow. It's very deliberate, but still very much one that like was a fun watch.
Okay.
So when you do watch it, I'm really, really curious to hear your thoughts, but I think, I just think kind of what I said earlier, I think this one's just a little bit too, I don't know, actually. I don't know. I haven't seen like super artful like films. I don't know which like super artsy films won in the past. Like all these are artsy films in some way.
Yeah.
But this one like seems like the most deliberately artsy film that's been nominated for a while. And I just don't know if it's going to win because of that, because it's just it's a little too obtuse, sort of.
That's fair.
Similar to other films on this list.
Yeah. Which again, I think this is what makes it easy when you do put up the poll. Yeah. That you can knock that down,
and we'll see.
7 pretty easy.
But it's a cool film. It really is a cool film. Like I appreciate it. So I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea in this one. I don't think it'll win, but I don't know. I don't know. But moving on to the next one, Dune. This film, I am a new individual to Dune, much like a lot of people probably.
Yeah. So.
You know, I was like, I saw this movie coming out, and I was like, okay, I've heard about Dune, you know, the past couple of years. I'm gonna read it. Like, I know it's like one of the best sci-fi books of all time. I'll just read it.
So you read it before you watched, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I did too. Actually, I got about 2/3 of the way through the book, and I was like, yeah, screw it. I'm gonna go and see the movie. And I got really lucky because
you're perfect. Yeah.
Only like the first half of the book, and I was like, great.
Yeah, perfect.
Anyway, yes. Okay.
Man, So I had not seen the original, and I would love to see the original because I've heard it's not great. But to have that comparison, I think would be really helpful here. This is directed by Denis Villeneuve, who is known for Arrival, Sicario, Blade Runner, Prisoners, just so many like really awesome films. Like this guy's been cranking out some excellent work the past couple of years. Blade Runner, I don't know if you've seen that one more recently, but that one was just
the new one. I haven't seen the newest, with the Blade Runner 2049 or whatever. I didn't see it. I think I actually might. Do I own that?
It's one of the ones you just picked up. You're like, I know it's a good film. I'm going to watch this, but I'll get around to it eventually.
Yeah, I think that was one.
But it's just, the Blade Runner, like looking at that aesthetic and how it's been transferred or translated over to Dune, I think it's just a natural progression, and Arrival in some elements. Mm-hmm. Like Arrival was a really, really good, actual first encounter story. But just for those who don't know the story of Dune, Paul Atreides, a brilliant and gifted young man born into a great destiny beyond his understanding, must travel to the most dangerous planet in the universe to ensure the future of his family and his people. As malevolent forces explode into conflict over the planet's exclusive supply of the most precious resources in existence, only those who can conquer their own fear will survive. 84 by critic, 90 by audience. So a little on the lower list again.
Yeah, but I mean...
man, I was so impressed with this film. I saw it in IMAX, which I think for this kind of film, this is how you would want to see it. And I was just really impressed overall with, not just like the acting was good. There were some standouts and some that were just fine. But what really like just blew me away was the set pieces and just some of the visual effects that they employed, and just the design of some of these monsters, and like just like the main what is the name of the worm? I put it down here because I keep on forgetting. The Shai-Hulud. Just nuts, man. Like this, I was just jaw on the floor. Like, this is cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to take home like every technical piece you can do, whether it's sound, visual effects, whatever production design stuff. This is yeah, I toyed around with the idea of watching this on HBO when it was on there, and I was like, no, I'm going to, for the first time in 2 years, brave the movie theater post COVID, and
I need to do this. This film deserves this.
It was super paranoid every time you would hear somebody go, and you're like, oh my God,
I'm gonna die. Yeah.
But I mean, but it was so well done. And it stayed very true to the story. Like, and I could see if you were going into this movie having like no information, like never read Dune or something like that, you'd be like, man, that was cool, but what was this thing and why was that thing? Because they don't like. I think that's maybe what I like about this is it doesn't take the time to sit there and like dumb it down to you to be like, now let me go into explaining how this thing. Because honestly, even when you're reading the book, it's not explained to you. It's not explained. It just is one of those things. It's like you're gonna figure it out along the way if you're reading. Like it might take you 300 pages. Yes. But you're going to figure it out. And so I think that's what I loved about it. It was just like, we're not going to spend the time giving you all this insane backstory to all this other stuff. We're going to kind of just drop you into the middle of this thing. And it's like, Dune's changing hands to the treaty. So get ready. We're going in.
Yeah. It's so funny you make that comment because like literally when I was reading Dune, I was like, there were words that I was coming across that I was like, what is this word? I was like, how, like maybe my reading vocabulary is bad. And then I like would Google it and I was like, oh, it's a fictional word that only exists in Dune. And I was like, okay. Yeah. I was like, I'm glad to know I'm not illiterate.
It was funny too, because when I had read it and then I watched the movie, and then I had students, I had like 4 or 5 or 6 different students that were all reading Dune at the same time. So I had one of my students, and he'd literally come to me like at the start of every class and be like, okay, I have Dune questions. What does this mean? What is this? Is this what this means over here that I'm making these 2 connections? I'd be like, yep. That's okay. You're piecing it together
close. Now. This is this actually. The Gom Jabbar is actually this.
And there was one thing where I was just like, I'm not going to tell you that because it's going to be explained, and I'm not going to ruin that part for you. So just trust me that it does get explained.
Yeah, you'll figure it out later.
But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie.
Oh, and I forgot to mention this, starring Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, Dave Bautista, Jason Momoa, like all kinds of, like pretty well known actors.
How are you gonna forget
Zendaya? Sorry,
she's there for like.
Dude, I pulled this straight from Rotten Tomatoes. I pulled this like starring list straight from Rotten Tomatoes. They're gonna only listen to those top 4 people. So I was like, okay, I'll just copy them in. But yes, Zendaya. Sorry, Zendaya. But yeah, really cool cast, and I don't know. To your point, I think they were very faithful to the book, and nothing was explained. But I remember asking people afterwards that hadn't read the books. I was like, "Hey, what'd you think of this?" And like, I thought it was a cool movie. Like, I enjoyed it. I could follow what was happening. Like, I have a few questions about some of the things, and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, in reality, that's how the book is too." Like, they do like a lot of time jumping, and you're like, "Wait, why are we here?"
How did we get? Okay, yeah.
And then they explain like, "Oh, that's Paul because he can see into the future and the past, and he can see everything." And you're like, "Okay, all right."
Yeah.
So, I might change how I feel about this, but because they did such a good job bringing this to bring this to reality and just knocking out of the park. Like I have a feeling that this has a chance. Okay. This has a chance of winning. Okay. And they don't like voting on space epics and like kind of nerdy films, but they might.
Look, I'd be fine if this won. I again love the movie. Totally fine with this one. I think my easiest comparison here is Lord of the Rings. It didn't win Best Picture until after Return of the King. Yeah, and that's not to say that like Fellowship and Two Towers were not like fantastic. They are fantastic.
They're so good. Yeah, they're better than Dune.
I really think. Like if you look at the movies that were winning those years, it's just like but Fellowship could have easily won. Two Towers easily could have won because it was like part 1, part 2, and then part 3. And there's like, okay, we're going to basically look at this now as here are all of these elements in this. So it's hard for me to see that Dune wins, on a part 1, just because it's not complete. So I do think if Denis Villeneuve continues to put forth this type of production and quality acting along with the visual spectacle that is over the course of the Dune series. It's like, I would not be surprised if this eventually takes home.
Snags one.
I just like, it's hard for me to go, it's a part one. And
you're making the wise call. You're making the wise call there.
To be fair, The Godfather.
The Godfather is the Godfather.
It was The Godfather. Yeah, I know. But
I don't think people will look back at this as like The Godfather.
No. I think your easiest comparison is probably the level at which Lord of the Rings was. I think that's going to be the easiest comparison.
Lord of the Rings, I think, really compared to Dune, is still like all three of those films, I think, holistically are just better standalone films than this, like, part one is. So
that's fair.
So you're right. But I want it to happen. So
I know you do.
We'll see.
I know you do.
I'm just going to manifest it into existence.
Do it.
All right. Up next, we have King Richard, directed by Ronaldo Marcus Green, whose most notable film, I think, is Monsters and Men, which came out not too long ago. I don't remember the exact year that it came out. But this is starring Will Smith, Anjane Ellis, John Bernthal, and Sania Sidney. I hope I got those names right, but I probably got them wrong as well. So forgive me once again. Anjanu Ellis, I don't know.
We're so sorry, Will Smith, for getting your name wrong.
Please, Will Smith, yours is okay. I'm sorry, everyone. Please forgive me. But this is the story of the Williams family, Venus and Serena, the two most well-known tennis stars probably ever. And so I'll read the synopsis really quick. Armed with a clear vision and a brazen 78-page plan, Richard Williams is determined to write his daughters Venus and Serena into history. Training on Compton, California's neglected tennis courts, rain or shine, the girls are shaped by their father's unyielding commitment and their mother's balanced perspective and keen intuition, defying the seemingly insurmountable odds and prevailing expectations laid before them. Based on the true story that will inspire the world, King Richard follows the uplifting journey of a family whose unwavering resolve and unconditional belief ultimately delivers two of the world's greatest sports legends. So take it away, Zach. What were your thoughts on this one?
I mean, acting is awesome. I mean, Will Smith pretty much at this point probably has it on lock.
He's such a good crier, dude. He's such a good crier.
That's so good. I'm still there's still a part of like my soul that was forever damaged by I Am Legend and his scene with the dog. Anyways,
Sam.
But yeah, I think especially when you start looking at, like, they show the real footage kind of in the credits, cool. And you're seeing like, holy cow, they nailed all these interviews and they nailed these costumes and they nailed this like acting. Like, they're like, that is incredible acting. It's a positive film. It's uplifting. Even though there's some points where like, you're like, oh my God, you are the most over controlling parent I've ever seen in my entire life. And me as a parent now, I'm going like, I would never subject my children to that, because like, and maybe again, this is probably the difference between like us growing up or raising our kids in Chattanooga versus like Compton, where it's basically like, you got to get out or there's
drive-bys happening. And
it's, like it's a completely different kind of world, but it was almost like a little strange, because they kind of hint at that in the film, like the neighbor calls protective services on them or whatever, and you get that feeling where like, man, it's strange that he's using his daughters almost as a way to get out, and he's doing it for their entire family. He's doing it for them. But at the same time, it is just like, oh man, that's a really heavy burden to put on your kids. Like, hey, you have to do this, or like we're going to do this together, but you need to succeed because we're getting out of here. Like, you're a ticket out of Compton. Which is a ton of pressure to put on kids, and again, all of this is like true. Like, it's not some sort of like, oh man, wouldn't that be terrible if you like, no, this is true. At the same time, it also did produce Venus and Serena, like
most well-known tennis stars that the sport's
seriously.
ever seen.
So it like, I mean, it was, acting was great. The whole kind of notion of like the the balancing of like the perseverance of the family as a whole, but also the controlling parents and, trying to provide the best life, but also it's walking that line and showing you kind of the delicate kind of balance between that. Go ahead.
You good.
I was going to say, like, my one kind of like caveat to all of this is like, it's a sports movie. And much like comedies, sports movies does better than comedies, right? Comedies has 2 wins. Sports movies has 3 wins with Rocky, Chariots of Fire, and $1 Million Baby. So,
okay. Yeah.
I initially thought when this was one of like my earlier films that I watched, this was maybe 2 or 3 that I had seen on my 8 that I've watched. I was like, all right, if they're kind of angling for the more kind of like positive vibe, maybe they go this way. But now that I've seen CODA, I'm like, no, but they're gonna go CODA over.
This one's more positive.
Richard, yeah. So that's.
Yeah, I think it's a really neat story, and it's told well, and I love that they really focused on Venus more than Serena. Like I liked how like that she was the first one out that really like started their family.
Yeah.
And I remember like hearing about that, like how Venus had gone into the tournament ring, and then like just like kind of she lost that first match, and I don't know what she did after that, but I know it took her a little bit to get back into it, and it's just that like some of the elements they touched on with like their dad having like another son, or like having multiple kids with different wives and stuff like that, or ex-wives and stuff. Like they hint on that a little, but they never like really fully get into it. So I think it was just really interesting getting like a bit more of a behind the scenes look. That seemed like pretty sincere, like pretty honest. Like they showed a lot of stuff that I was like, oh, that's kind of like a questionable thing, but I'm glad that they included that like, he was this way, but
they're not sugarcoating it by any means. And I honestly, I'm sure probably if you ask Venus and Serena, I know from different interviews too, it's just like, it was tough, but at the same time, he made us who we are today, and we wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for that push and that drive.
And I love this shot, like from the stands where he's holding his little dry erase sign. He's like, hello to all my friends in Compton. Like he's like, it's not that he like didn't like. It's not that he like he still has his like friends in Compton and those connections there. So it was just cool. It was a cool story. Currently at a 90 with critics, 98 with audience.
Audience loves it. Again, it's hard not to like the movie. I mean, you have to maybe just really hate tennis.
It's not really even about tennis. It's just
you maybe have to like really just hate parents and just the families, maybe in general. Just like that 2% of America that didn't like it, the world that didn't like it.
The scenes where they're at the tennis clubs was pretty interesting. He was like, all these, you guys need to be getting all these parents into jail or something like that. Or he's like, you need to be investigating the parents at these tennis tournaments. And I was like, it's kind of interesting he made that comment, because it's like, well,
at the same time, you're
there
also...
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyways, overall good. And I think the guy that, I don't know his name, the guy that plays Shane in The Walking Dead, who played their
John Barathol.
He was great.
Yeah.
He was great. Hey, let's go, guys. Come on. All right. Up next, Licorice Pizza. Oh, and we just said probably not going to win. I'm kind of there too.
Yeah.
I could see it. I could see it if they go that route, but probably unlikely.
Yeah.
All right. Up next, Licorice Pizza. This is directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, who's known for There Will Be Blood, The Master, and a few other pretty well-known titles. But a bit of a departure from his previous films. Like those two were like pretty heavy and like a little unsettling.
I drink your milkshake.
Yeah, like this one's a little bit less. You get that vibe a little bit in certain scenes, but starring Alana Haim, Cooper Hoffman, Sean Penn, Tom Waits, Bradley Cooper. It's got a bunch of random other stars in it. Hannah was telling me Alana Haim, she is in a band with like her sisters, and they were in this film. It was just really cool. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
This is like her debut acting role as well, and I think she did a great job. But overall, like this was a strange film to me. Like it was fun.
Yeah.
But like kind of like I was saying earlier about his previous films, like they're usually dark, and the entire time I was like, is something bad gonna happen? Like, is something like this feels like something really isn't going to happen here? Like there was just like when she was hanging out with Sean Penn, I was like, oh, something like dark's gonna happen in this scene.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not looking forward to this, and like nothing came of it. Like I was like, oh, what a sigh of relief, and
Yeah.
it was just this goofy like story about a 15-year-old that falls in love with a 25-year-old, and they just run around the city trying to sell stuff.
Yeah. It's definitely weird. It's just it's one of those films. It's like I spent half the time or I guess when I finished it, I was just going, is the film like is it like is it just like about loving whoever regardless of age, or is it about like Alana trying to just like every time she tries to go into like the adult world, something bad happens, so she just eventually just gives up and it's like, I'll just be a kid, or I'll just like it was hard for me to kind of like pinpoint like this is the point of this movie right here.
Yeah, you also get this like essence of like she's looking for like love from like anyone that she like has a relationship with, like because maybe she's not getting that from her family, but like all the like the people like maybe it was all most notably men, but like all the men that she had relationships with, she was like trying to vie for their attention, and then like each one of those didn't work out for a particular reason or something like that. But I was just like, yeah, this is strange. Like I don't know what the overall theme here is.
Yeah, and that's what it was hard for me to like. Yeah, it was just hard for me to kind of just try to figure out like, I know I liked it, I know I was entertained by it, but if you were to ask me what the movie was about, I'd be like,
I mean, even the description, I skipped the description because it was so short. It says Alana Kane and Gary Valentine grow up, run around, and fall in love in California's San Fernando Valley in the 1970s. Like that, like even that doesn't really tell you much. Like it's just like that's kind of what that's all it's about. Like they just kind
of So again, I mean, like it was good. I had a good time watching the movie. Like I've had some laughs.
There's some funny scenes. Bradley Cooper was funny in the scene when like they go to his house and they're helping him install the waterbed, and he gets like super pissed. He's like, "Do you know who I'm married to?" And he's just like he's like a total like creep, and the whole gas scene. That was actually, I really did like the setting where they were playing into like, hey, there's gas shortages and there's these huge lines. There's no gas anywhere. I thought that was kind of cool. Like there's like signs saying ride your bikes. I was like, I like the setting.
Yeah,
but again,
the setting was good.
Like, what is this about?
It's just weird. I couldn't pinpoint it, and I was just like, maybe there's some like major underlying theme I'm supposed to be picking up on, but I was just like, I don't know.
It's fun, but I don't know.
Okay, I mean, it was one of those like, if you went in expecting to get some sort of like deep, meaningful thing, I don't know if you're coming away going like, that was really deep. It's just kind of like, that was kind of a feel good.
Yep.
And there's probably a message along the way, but it just was, maybe it was supposed to be kind of more open-ended, multiple options for it. Who knows?
Maybe it was just supposed to be a fun movie.
Maybe.
And Cooper Hoffman also is cool to see in a role. He was like 19, I think, so he actually is pretty close to the age he was playing in this. It was just kind of cool to see him in a role, since his dad's passed away. I don't know if this is Cooper's first role ever.
Yeah, sure.
But I feel like he did a great job as well. I think his acting was excellent. So
I want to know how did he have that much money to keep on like starting up brand new businesses after like the previous one would like fail? And it's just,
I don't know. Also a lot of running in this film.
A lot
of running places back and forth. I don't know. Overall, fun film, but don't think it's going to win. 91 critics, 65 audience, which is probably how we're feeling. We're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can see what they appreciate, but I'm just not. I'm not connecting there.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Nightmare Alley. This was directed by Guillermo del Toro, who is known for Pan's Labyrinth, previous Oscar winner, The Shape of Water, and I think the Pan's Labyrinth may have won also. I don't know actually. And Hellboy. All I know is Pan's Labyrinth is the one people are most familiar with and is excellent as well. But The Shape of Water won 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago.
3. So it was, Nomadland, Parasite, Shape of Water.
Oh, Parasite's so good.
It did not win Best Picture. Pan's Labyrinth.
Okay. It wasn't.
It won like production design, cinematography, screenplay, original score, makeup and hairstyling, and international feature film.
So many cool things that film did. I think that really got him on the map. But anyways, he's done a lot of cool stuff. This is starring Bradley Cooper, again, as the main actor in this one. Rooney Mara, Cate Blanchett, Ron Perlman, and again, so many other really well-known actors. I'm sorry I didn't make this list longer. But this is a synopsis here. When charismatic but down on his luck Stanton Carlyle, Bradley Cooper, endears himself to clairvoyant Xena, Toni Collette, and her has-been mentalist husband Pete, at a traveling carnival, he crafts a golden ticket to success using this newly acquired knowledge to grift the wealthy elite of the 1940s New York society. With the virtuous Molly, Rooney Mara, loyally by his side, Stanton plots to con a dangerous tycoon, Richard Jenkins, with the aid of a mysterious psychiatrist, Cate Blanchett, who might be his most formidable opponent yet.
She was. Spoiler.
She was, yeah. 80% critic, 68% audience. She was. Spoiler. That's pretty funny. Let's start with you, man. What were your thoughts on this one?
I finished this one about 4 hours ago, so pretty fresh. I did watch it over 2 days because, I started a movie that was 2.5 hours long at 10 o'clock last night, so I made it till about 11:30.
Got pretty tired.
Watched about 20 minutes of it on my lunch break today, and then finished the rest after work. So it was very well acted. It kept me intrigued the entire time. Even with watching it multiple days, it like I didn't feel like I was like, leaving off from different things.
Breaking the immersion there, yeah.
It's definitely a very dark storyline. You get that whole kind of like rise and fall of Stan's character, from
big time
nothing to success to nothing. It was there's a whole, I don't know how far we're getting kind of into the spoilers, but like
we're getting into it.
We're getting into it. Okay, cool. Sorry. If you want to watch this movie before you hear the spoilers, just skip about 5 minutes, 6 minutes down the road. Okay, now that's over. We both, I think, called that whole the geek element, and how it was like set up, but like, oh yeah, here's how you get these people to be your like, is it monster or man situation, and it's just like, this is somehow going to come back into play. And when you kind of start seeing things start going wrong for him, it's just like, oh yeah, he's going to end up as the geek, and even though he knew the play. Yep. And that's what, like, that was the one kind of question I had at the end. I was just like, was he so far gone that he didn't even realize that he was falling for it? Or was it one of those things where he was just like, he was so far gone and knew it, but knew that he would at least,
he was so desperate. Like, I think he was just so desperate at this point that he just needed it, he had fallen down to nothing, down on his luck, Stanton Carlyle. The whole movie to me was really interesting because it opens with this scene of him like killing his dad, like literally like taking his dad, I don't know, not off life support, but essentially like saying like, I hate you,
Well, to be fair, it ended with that. You just start with, he's dragging a body, drops it into the ground, and then you kind of figure out, oh, that was his dad, and his dad was dead. But you're kind of like, question mark, did he kill him? And it turns out at the end, he did. Yeah, he did.
But yeah, I think there was some strange scenes in this. Like, I didn't love the the random relationship that he had with the I forget her name right now, but like the blonde, like fortune teller lady, like the tarot card lady. She was like older than him. That just seemed like really out of place. I was like, why did that
bath scene where you're like, why do I need to see that? I don't want to see.
Why did this? I
don't want to see Bradley Cooper's job.
How did this further the story at all?
Xena's the
Xena.
Yeah.
And then like. But what I did love, like, there was some like those like weird, like, why was that in this?
Yeah.
But most of it was explained. Most of it was like explained later. Again, the whole geek scenario, I was like, that was a weird thing for them to go into like pretty long detail about how this whole thing happens. But then of course it makes sense later. And I think that was like the best part about this movie was that they wove this thread so well, and you knew he was going to face demise. They tell you in the very beginning, like when he flips the tarot card, like it's going to go bad for him.
Yeah.
But the flip with the doctor, I really thought was very well done. I was like, oh my gosh! I was like, I did not see this happening. I was like, I knew that she like maybe was like a little like strange, but like she was already a victim herself, and I thought maybe she was like scared, but in reality, she was also just as like, I guess just as just as big of a con man, con woman as he was con man, and so it was just like. It's just really dark and depressing to see this guy who was just starting to like find meaning. He had a girl that he liked that liked him back, and
then just couldn't stop.
He just wanted more. He just wanted more and more and more and more, and he just turned to alcohol and unraveled. And
I made the note that this is the. I feel like this is like the first like Guillermo del Toro movie that doesn't have like a CGI or some sort of like crazy classic Del Toro monsters. But then I was just like, but maybe Stan is the monster. The monster's inside of all of us. So, like I was like, maybe he's playing kind of at that a little bit. Maybe I'm just going way too deep with that. I also feel like this, like when you're talking about like ensemble cast, like right, big name actors kind of all throughout. Like, I feel like this did better with that than Don't Look Up. Like,
yes.
Maybe part of that's just like the comedy versus like really well acted drama period piece.
Yeah, I love this. I love the setting here too. Yeah. That was one thing I wanted to say too. The setting I really thought was very well done. That was a cool setting. And I think the scenes with the like, I don't know, the tycoon Richard Jenkins, like that was like pretty heavy dark stuff too. Like, he's warned that this guy's dangerous, but then he gets in there and he starts learning more and more about as he's like kind of BSing his way into this relationship with this guy. And you start realizing what he's done, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, dude!"
And you realize that, and then like with that ending, you're kind of like, "Yeah, okay, I'm fine with him doing that." But then you're like, "Oh, but that also ruins everything else." But okay, all right.
Yeah, like dragging his wife, who was, man, when she was about to leave, and she was ready to leave him, and she was like, I was like, yes, good for her. I was like, get out of here. This dude sucks. Like, I told Hannah, I was like, I'm so glad that like they wrote her this way to where she gets out safe. No, nope. She does not get out unscathed.
Nope, she is not.
But overall, I don't think it's going to win. I think it's a good film. I was really impressed with Bradley Cooper in this one. I think he did a great job unraveling. Like, I think he played this role to a T. But I think, just holistically, it just, like you said, it's a little depraved, a little too much. You're like, I don't know if I want this to win.
I don't. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was a I don't want to say fun film to watch, but I was intrigued the entire time.
Interesting story.
I was hooked. It was well done. I find it hard to think this would win, and it doesn't seem like it probably has a good chance to. So,
an 80% critic, 68% audience. So pretty low on the audience, which is surprising. But again, not for everyone. Not for everyone.
Speaking of not for everyone.
So up next we have The Power of the Dog. This is a Netflix production, directed by Jane Campion, and I think this is one of her first main. She's done a lot, but I think this is like one of her first notable ones.
There was another really big one that she did, and I'm going to find out why you're giving the
starring Benedict Cumberbatch, Kirsten Dunst, which is cool, Jesse Plemons, which I feel like he's in everything now, and Cody Smith McPhee. I don't know if this is his first major debut.
I think it's like one of the first.
But he did a great job in this as well. I mean, again, I think acting across the board was really good. Jesse Plemons is the only one that I felt like was just very like, stoic, kind of stone-faced the entire time. But I'll read the synopsis really quick. Severe, pale-eyed, handsome Phil Burbank is brutally beguiling. All of Phil's romance, power, and fragility is trapped in the past and in land. He can castrate a bull calf with 2 swift slashes of his knife. He swims naked in the river, smearing his body with mud. He is a cowboy as raw as his hides. The year is 1925. The Burbank brothers are wealthy ranchers in Montana. At the Red Mill restaurant on their way to market, the brothers meet Rose, the widowed proprietress, and her impressionable son, Peter. Phil behaves so cruelly he drives them both to tears, reveling in their hurt and rousing his fellow cowhands to laughter, all except his brother George, who comforts Rose when they return to marry her. As Phil swings between... This is like the whole story. As Phil swings between fury and cunning, his taunting of Rose takes an eerie form. He hovers at the edge of her vision, whistling a tune she can no longer play. His mockery of her, his son, is more overt, amplified by the cheering of Phil's cowhand disciples. Then Phil appears to take the boy under his wing. Is this the latest gesture of a softening that leaves Phil exposed, or a plot twisting further into menace?
The other film that she had done was The Piano, which won like 3 Oscars back in 93. Mainly for 93. So it's been a while since she was really kind of
94 critic, 77% audience. So relatively high. But man, this as much as I wanted to like this film,
I'm with you.
It just I was just so confused at the end. I was just I appreciate the artistry behind this. I read the meaning of the power of the dog, and it really is about it's supposed to be about misogyny and toxic masculinity,
homophobia,
but none of that really ever lands. Once I had read that and I thought back on this film, I was like, okay,
yeah,
I can see that now. But that did not land at all for me. That idea, at first watch through, I was like, what is the story here? I was like, I don't understand. Nothing was explained. I was like, why is he a jerk to her? Why can't she play the piano anymore? There were just so many things that just maybe could have just benefited from a little bit of explanation.
Yeah.
Just here's what's going on. Why is she drinking herself to death almost? To he just makes her that uncomfortable. I don't know. Yeah. You seem to have similar thoughts.
I was right there with you. And I even asked my dad. My dad watched some movies, and I said, "Did you see it?" And he goes, "Yeah, I saw it." I said, "How'd you feel about it?" He goes, "I actually really liked it because and this makes sense to me because my dad is one of those people who will I don't feel like he can take the movie critiquing aspect out of his head and just sit there and enjoy a film. He's always dissecting films. So he said, for me, this was one of those films where I could sit there and I could see, oh, here's that connection they're doing there. Okay, that's how that cinematography stuff's set up. That looks really cool. Oh, this is a classic trope playing off of, X, Y, and Z, or a critique on this particular. So he was already in that mindset, but I was like, that is asking so much of an audience member.
I got none of that.
I was like, even some of that, I kind of caught. Obviously, I got the fact that cinematography. You look at that; it's a beautiful film.
Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
The directing and just the picking of the shots and the dialogue and all this other stuff. I was like, yeah, fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
I just was. There were so much more. You had to be paying attention to every single aspect, and the thing that becomes the most critical in the entirety of the film is a throwaway line while they're riding horses. And if you miss that one line, you get to the end of the movie and you go, oh, wait, how is he dead?
Yep. That's pretty much it.
And if you're not paying attention and you're asking audience members to hang on to that one brief, oh, stay clear of that cow, died of anthrax.
Yeah, it's got anthrax.
And if you miss that line, or if you just don't think about it, and then you're like, how did he go from being this kind person, whatever, maybe kind of finally letting himself to feel some of his desires that he's been repressing, and now he's dead.
And why would the son have the motivation to kill him? In the very beginning, he's like, yeah. As a good son, I got to protect my mother. at all costs or like whatever. And so you're like, okay, all right. So what does that look like? And it's like, so you're just gonna kill the guy that's like sort of like warming up to you and like taking you under your wing, sort of, and trying to like.
And there's so many, and I'm sure critics love all the super tiny intricate pieces that are all interwoven and all this stuff. It's like, but you are asking so much of the audience, to be able to do that. And this seems like a very polarizing movie. It's either one of those. It's like you love it, or you walk away going, what the heck did I just spend 2.5 hours of my life watching?
That's how I felt. And it's one of those films, kind of like the other one I was mentioning with, oh gosh, it's one of those ones where you just feel like something terrible is going to happen the whole time. Like something just really bad's going to happen. And like nothing really bad happens until the very end when the son kills him. And you're just like, oh man, I didn't expect this this like mean act to come from the son, you know?
Right.
Like
you thought it was going to come from the other one. So I mean, and again, there's some stuff that where you're like,
that's kind of cool. Like that's cool playing with our expectations.
Yeah. It just,
yeah.
I was like, you have so much good quality actors in that.
Such a good setting and like a good story.
Great setting.
Like, Kirsten Dunst, I think, did a great job. It's just like, overall, it was just like, man. Like Hannah and I both the same thing. I was like, what was that? I was like, what did I just watch? I was like, I don't understand. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'm just a pleb. Maybe I'm just like a ding dong that doesn't understand film. But like,
oh no, I feel like we've been doing this long enough to say that like we generally understand film, and it's like, and I know you have your. Gosh, what was it? Was it Sam Elliott that came out and was like railing against like. All the, I mean, he went on like a giant like homophobic rant about the movie and stuff like that. I'm like, it's not even that. It's just that like there was
just nonsense.
There was just so many more questions at the end of the movie, and I was like, if I'm walking away still asking questions about like what happened, for me. I don't want that to win. I don't want a movie where I'm still trying to figure out what exactly happened, and not in a good way. It's not one of those like it's not like a
fun mystery where you're like, oh, like that was so mysterious. What happened?
It's not like Inception where you spend the rest of the time like, but the top was like wobbling. Maybe he was asleep the whole time. Maybe he's not. It wasn't like that where it's like it was like it just was. It literally was like, I don't understand. Many elements that were in there that made me get to the point of going, I would have to understand all of that
to enjoy this,
to get that. And I was just like, there's too much legwork, and I did not enjoy it.
Same here. I wanted to. I so badly wanted to, and I just didn't. The cinematography, actors, setting, all that was just so good. But I think I understand myself, and I know that I like compelling stories. I like interesting stories. I like really good cinematography and like all those things paired together. But like the story part really did get me, where I was just like, I'm not, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
It had all the different elements for me to go, okay, I'm fine with her winning best director. There's enough of those elements that I'm just, again, all the intricacies and all the other stuff.
Cool connections.
But if you're talking about Best Picture and you're asking it to win,
I don't think so.
It just it's hard for me to get there. I understand this is one of the favorites. I understand this might still technically be considered the front runner. And it pains me to know that, because I was like, I already kind of had to sit there with like. Like I was not the biggest fan of like Nomadland last year, but like I at least understood that there was like the redeeming elements and like the story of the you know like even that I was like, okay, it's a story about the hardships of the recession, and like I got that. I found like I was able to enjoy that. Wasn't my favorite last year, but like this is one that I'm like, I would actually be upset if this.
I would be disappointed if this one, because I so didn't understand it exactly. Yeah. It won't happen. It won't happen. I want to manifest that here. It's just not going to happen. But nothing against the movie. It's just I don't think it's going to happen. Or maybe it is against the movie. I don't know.
Who knows? All right, take us home.
Last one on the list. West Side Story.
Haven't seen it yet.
By Steven Spielberg.
I know. How did I not see the Spielberg one?
You may have heard of this guy. I'm not going to list his movies because you should know his name at this point. Starring Ansel Elgort, Rachel Zegler, Ariana DeBose, David Alvarez, and I'm sure other well-known people that this website did not list off for me. But yeah, it's a story. It's West Side Story. So love at first sight strikes when young Tony spots Maria at a high school dance in 1957 in New York City. Their burgeoning romance helps to fuel the fire between the warring Jets and Sharks, two rival gangs vying for control of the streets. Have you seen... Excuse me. Have you seen West Side Story?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've seen it. And I've seen the plays, and I've seen the original movies. Yeah. Is there snapping in the movie? That's all I want to know.
Oh yeah, there's snapping. Yes. So, yeah, I think people that are fans of West Side Story will immediately love this, and I think people that, forgive me, people that are really cool with story being told in between singing and song and dance will enjoy this. Okay. But this is where it did not hit for me. Like it's so just for clarity, it's got 92 critic, 94 audience. So people like this. But for me personally, this was one of those adaptations, those adaptations, musical adaptations, play adaptations that did not land. Like we were talking earlier, I liked Sweeney Todd, I liked Les Mis. I think those had more compelling stories that were just translated better to the screen. Whereas in this scenario, I know that this has been translated to the screen before. It just, I don't know. I just didn't care. We tried watching this later at night around like 9:30, and we had to stop because I was falling asleep. I was just like, I can't do this. I was like, they're singing right now, and like I love singing. I sang in choir 4 years. Like I love show tunes. I sang some of these songs in choir, like in show choir. So like I know these songs, and I was just like, this is not it for me. Like it's kind of a heavy story. Like it's a deep story that's like talking about like racism and rivalries and just like all the nasty stuff that comes with this during this time period. But like it just loses all the weight as soon as they start singing again, you know, like they start singing and there's snapping and like dancing as they're fighting. And I'm just like, I just can't do it. So if you are a fan of the musical and you are familiar with the originals, if you've seen it live as a play, you'll probably end up liking this because that's how the play is. Okay. But for me, I was just like, this isn't it. This isn't for me.
Did you see In the Heights?
But I've heard that's great too. I've heard that's great.
Okay. That is one that I'm going to be interested to compare because I loved In the Heights, and that was like critics loved it, audience loved it. One of those things, and it was kind of considered one of like the big kind of like snubs out of the 10. Mm-hmm. So I'm really interested to kind of compare it to West Side and see if there was a difference because like I remember walking away from like In the Heights being like, yes, this is great, I loved it. But so like now I'm interested to see if maybe that should have been in over West Side.
I don't know. Like I don't know what it is about this. Like so like again, like if I'm thinking of like Sweeney Todd,
right? That's
like a pretty heavy story and pretty like messed up weird story. But it's the songs that accompany it.
Sure.
They just feel like they're supposed to be there, and like the way they're singing fits like what's happening. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this one, it's like goofy sometimes, or it's just like, "Hey man, be cool, boy," you know. And they're like, right. I'm just like, "What is happening?" And they're like, it did not land for me. It did not land. But people like it. However, even with you not seeing it, I just feel like this is one that's probably not going to win. Like, I just don't think, like, West Side Story has been, like, redone so many times that I just don't think it has the ability to win.
That's fair. I feel like that probably is.
They did some really cool stuff with the casting. I know that there's a lot of stories around that. Like, this cast was, like, really awesome. I think the Oscars forgot to invite the main female lead in this, which is a big, great job.
Good job, Oscars.
maybe it got lost in the mail. I don't know. But yeah, she did not get invited to the Oscars somehow. So yeah, so that's it. That's the full list of all of the nominations. Great job, we made it through.
Okay.
So now let's do our final ranking. Let's go. Do you want to go first or me?
I'll go first because I have less to rank.
Okay.
So my unranked ones, because I haven't seen them, is Driving My Car and West Side Story.
Okay.
Number 8 on my list. Again, sorry for it being the apparent front runner, but I did not like Power of the Dog that much, so I'm going to put that at the bottom. 7, Don't Look Up. Again, nothing against the movie. I enjoyed it. Just if I'm comparing the other ones, I don't know. That and Licorice Pizza are probably kind of like hand in hand. I kind of just There was some more kind of like lighthearted, feel good stuff with Licorice Pizza that I liked a little bit better. So I had that at 6, Nightmare Alley at 5, King Richard at 4, Dune at 3, CODA at 2, Belfast at 1. Those are my personal how I felt about these movies.
Great list.
So let's go with yours.
Okay, starting from last to best. I'm gonna swap this around because I think the way that I talked about one versus the other gave me some clarity on that. So, Power of the Dog is gonna be last on my list. West Side Story is number 9. Don't Look Up is 8. Licorice Pizza 7. Drive My Car 5 or 6. Nightmare Alley 5. CODA 4. King Richard 3. Dune 2. Belfast 1. So similar lists, and you and I both, I think, had the most fond, or at least the Belfast was the one that like just stood out as like, this is nice. It's artistic. It did a lot of things well, and it touched on multiple, like it hit on multiple emotional strings, and I think could really speak to a lot of audiences. And then Dune was just cool. I wanted that one on there, number 2.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't blame you for that one.
So what is your prediction? Your final prediction. Lock it in.
Final prediction. Yeah.
Let me best lock it in. Picture on the 94th Academy Awards.
I still want Belfast to win. It just hasn't been doing that well with other award shows. So I unfortunately don't think it's going to win. I think Power of the Dog has, so part of this goes with like the way they do the ballots. They do like almost like ranked voting, right? So they will have first place this, second place this, third place this. So like if one film does not get 50% of the first place votes, then they go into like, okay, now we look at second place votes, and then like go there.
Yep.
So this is where I think I don't think there are enough first place votes for Power of the Dog to win. And the thing about Power of the Dog is, if it's not your first place vote, it's probably not your second place vote. I feel like this is one of those where it really is a polarizing film. So sure, it might be in the top half of these movies for some, critics, stuff like that. I just have it hard to think if you're voting for a Belfast or a CODA or, even like a West Side Story or King Richard. I just find it hard to think that if those are the votes that you're going to be casting, that you're also going to have Power of the Dog in that grouping.
Right.
Because of that, I think CODA will get enough first place votes to at least kind of hang around with Power of the Dog.
Okay.
And then overtake it when you get into counting second place votes. Okay. So my prediction is CODA.
I like your scientific approach.
It's because I had I spent this evening kind of just looking through stuff, and I was like, okay, I just want to kind of get a feel for where people are thinking and stuff like that. And then when I started reading about the, preferential ranking system that they use, which is also the same type of voting that the Producers Guild Award used as well.
Okay.
And CODA came out on top of that one. So I'm like, okay, now there's precedent that tends to be kind of one of those bellwethers. So unless you have something that's just a clear favorite, if there's not that clear favorite.
Yeah, that's kind of like, that's where it is like right now. So with you saying that, it makes sense because none of these like outside of Belfast, I really do feel like a lot of these films, like this is Hannah and I were both saying this. Like, these were like good films, but I wasn't like. There's been some years where I was like, "Holy smokes, this film was amazing!" Like this rocked me, and I haven't had as many of those this year. Like from these nominations, like these are good. There was like some good moments in them, but like there was some I remember in previous years that just knocked me in my butt, and I was like, "This, I like I didn't cry once in any of these films," and I was just like, "In that's again, that's a drama thing. That's not specific. Sure, doesn't mean it's always good."
No,
but you know
there's, I mean, yeah, you're talking for me on this list. Again, I haven't seen 2 of these films, but if you're talking 2 out of 8, that's 25% of these movies actually made like an emotional impact on me. I was like, that's not what it's been in years past. I'd be interested to kind of like look back at to see what the record goes. Okay, yeah, that was impactful. Like, I'm even thinking about like last year, right? You had Parasite, 1917. Like those 2 just in themselves are ones that you're just like,
oh, wow.
Oh my gosh, I'm emotionally like drained. Like you didn't have that feeling.
I'm thinking of like Lion when that was nominated year.
Yes.
Like I freaking loved Lion. It didn't win, but like I was just like blown away by that film. I was like, gosh, I was like bawling when I was watching that.
I know.
So anyways, back to my prediction.
Yes.
Nothing to do with the prediction or the model that you understand that they vote with.
Yeah.
I put down Dune. Okay. Which was probably not smart. I'm going to say it right now. It's dumb. But I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about the experience, Zach. I'm thinking about going to the dang movies, okay?
Right.
We had the past 2 years where we weren't able to go to the movies, all right? And Dune was one of those first films that came to theaters that people were like, dang it, you said it yourself. I'm going to the movies to watch this. Like, I want to see this. And I think it was just such a spectacle. It was just such a huge, I think, achievement and like what they were able to do with bringing that book to the screen in a coherent way that wasn't just nonsense like the previous films. And it was awesome. Like it was just like a true movie-going experience. Now, the comparison could be Marvel and all these other like huge action movies that are sort of like that as well. Like Spider-Man, people went to the movies because Spider-Man was like, holy crap, I got to go see this. Like, this is a great
film. It was great.
Yeah, it was awesome. And like, I don't know why it's not on this list, but anyways, because it's better than some of these films on here.
You're not wrong.
But I think like of these ones, like Dune has enough history as like it being from a book and being one of the best sci-fi stories ever told, and just. It's got a cool cast, it's got a cool setting, and I don't know. I just liked it, so I put it on there.
Cannot blame you. Cannot blame me on that one.
But I think you were right. CODA is a great film too, and I would be happy if that one won. Between CODA, Dune, and Belfast, those would be the 3 that I would be happy to see win. King Richard, I'd be happy to see win as well. Yeah. All the rest, I'd be like, oh, that's strange. Like, oh, it's weird that one won, but okay.
And then Power of the Dog, I would just be upset.
I'd be mad. I'd be disappointed.
I would turn it off and just.
West Side Story, I would at least understand, even though I didn't like it that much. Like I'd be like, okay, yeah.
I feel like it would have that similar feeling to like the end of the Oscars last year when like they changed around the order because they were so certain that Chadwick Boseman was going to win Best Actor, and then it didn't, and everybody was just pissed and turned off the TV. Like, I know that's not how most people would feel. That's how like it would be a similar feeling, just being like, this was.
I'm done.
No, I'm done with you. Go away, Oscar voters, because you guys are no.
Give it to the people. Let the people vote for the films from now on, and we'll just do a people poll, and it'll be great.
I think they already have that. It's called like
People's Choice or something.
Awards.
Yeah, it's lame. It's not as doesn't mean anything. Just give us the power in the Oscars.
Just give Jake and I. This is our 6th year doing this. Just give us a vote. Look, give us a vote.
Between the 2 of us, we'll just take 1 vote.
We'll take 1 ballot. We will have this podcast being an official ballot.
The BitCast Oscars podcast gets 1 ballot. They are actually the swing vote that decided the winning of this year's Oscar.
Gladly do that.
That'd be awesome. All right. Well, unfortunately, all that is the end of our podcast. If you made it this far, thank you so much for staying with us. Again, from the start of the show, where we would love to know what your favorite is. It's always a fun discussion to hear the reasoning behind that kind of stuff. Because movies are fun. They're supposed to be fun. They're supposed to kind of bring out the imagination in all of us. But Zach, thank you so much for being on the show again for the 6th time.
Absolutely. It's great. I love it. Is
there anything you want to plug? Anything people need to know about you right now that you're doing? Anything?
I'm still teaching.
Still teaching.
I am. Yeah, I'm. Raising a kid. He knocked out a tooth this week, so he's going to be toothless for 3 more years. It's going to be great.
Oh, toothless, like How to Train Your Dragon.
Just one tooth, just gone. Dang, that's what I can plug because it's surviving.
If you guys have any recommendations on cool fake teeth for kids, send them our way. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, awesome, man. So no plugs for me, really. Just
just living life and trying to
same here, dude.
Be the best I can and take care of a family at the same time. So
that's all you can do. You can do. All right. Well, if you guys are unfamiliar, you should go to bitbloggers.com. All the content lives there. You can listen to this on all your podcasting services. We are on Twitch, Discord, social channels, all that jazz at BitBloggers. Send in your questions or, again, earlier, your favorite Best Picture nominations to BitCast at bitbloggers.com. And until next time, y'all, this has been BitCast. Thanks for tuning in to talk about some stuff.